Hi, we did The Secret Life of Bees, and it's by Sue Monk Kidd.
Okay, the summary of The Secret Life of Bees. Tormented by her memories of her late mother and abused by her father, 14-year-old Lily Owens runs away with her friend and caregiver, Rosaline, to the town of Tiburon, South Carolina. That helps her learn the truth about her mother. There, Lily meets the Calendar Sisters, who take her in and teach about beekeeping, honey, and the Black Madonna. Lily also discovers what really happened with her mother.
Do we have separate slides?
Yeah, we have
Oh,
some
yeah.
slides.
So the main characters, we have Lily, Terrence Ray, or T-Ray, August Boatwright, May Boatwright, and Zach Taylor. There are many characters in this book, but these are just the main ones that we decided to do because they have important roles in this book. Okay, this is Lily Owens. She's the narrator and she's the protagonist. She's 14 years old. In the beginning, she lives on a peach farm with her abusive father and her black caregiver, Rosaline. She runs away with her caregiver to discover more about her mother and what happened with her.
It's not a race.
I'm sorry. Lily and her caregiver end up in the town of Tiburon, South Carolina, and the reason why they end up there is because Lily has these artifacts that belong to her mother that leads her to this town because she has a picture that has that name on the back. Lily ends up meeting the Boatwright sisters, which you'll meet later on. Lily and her caregiver end up being taken in by the Boatwright sisters, and Lily learns about what happened, about her mother's past, and the truth about how her mother died.
Boatwright Sisters and Calendar Sisters are intertwined like they're the same people. Don't get confused.
August Boatwright, she is one of the Calendar Sisters, as they're called. April, May, June, and August. April and May are actually crossed out because both of them die in the book. August works on and she owns a honeybee farm in Tiburon, South Carolina, and she inherited this farm by her grandfather. She runs her own company, which is Black Madonna Honey, and she attends and runs her own religion. It's the Sisters of Mary. There's one male that attends this whole religion. She got a teacher degree in an all-black school, and she's very caring throughout the whole story. She's kind of the mother figure for everybody.
And you learn on later about how August is connected with Lily's mother.
That's me.
Oh.
Alright, so T-Ray, he's the father of Lily, who is the main character, and the husband of Deborah, who is Lily's deceased mom. You find out later on in the play that she accidentally kills her mom at an early age when mishandling a gun. And he's known for his harsh punishments, one of which is where they lay like grits, which is basically like really carved up potatoes, and she has to kneel on them for hours on end. And T-Ray likes to blame a lot of what happens, like in his life, the bad things that happens on her, and he gets drunk a lot.
Okay, Zachary Taylor is Lily Owens' main love interest, as you could say. He was born and raised in Tiburon. He is good at sports, hardworking. He's good at beekeeping. He helps August and Lily at it. And he's in prison because of his race. There was an incident in the town, and he just got caught in it. And he wants to be a lawyer when he grows up, so he works under a lawyer the main lawyer in Tiburon, South Carolina.
This is May Boatwright. May is the fourth Boatwright sister. May is an empathizer. I don't know why it didn't continue the word. Empathizing is when she can't, what's the top?
And empathetic is a person who picks up on everyone's emotions or their negative or positive energy, and they have different ways of showing that.
May had a twin sister who is April, who was very depressed, and she committed suicide at a very young age. When May is sad, she sings or hums the song "Oh Susanna" to herself to try and kind of forget about what's going on around her, and she spends time alone and removes herself from the situation. May has her own wailing wall, and it kind of represents like the wall in Jerusalem where people go and pray. So when May is sad, she writes down on a piece of paper and sticks it in a slot in a part of the wailing wall that's empty. May commits suicide when finding out Zach goes to prison or
Mhm.
jail. So.
That was kind of her pushing point of, oh, I can't deal with this anymore, I don't know what else to do, so she went to the river by the Wailing Wall and
Drowned herself.
drowned herself.
Alright, so our top vocabulary words were brazen, which means to not be ashamed or embarrassed by one's behaviors. Consolation, which is comfort received by a person after loss or a disappointment. Draping, for beekeeping, is to cover the hives with a curtain to prevent the bees from escaping, which is something that they do when they were mourning the death of May.
Yes.
And, yeah. An empath is a person with a somewhat paranormal ability to understand another person's mental and emotional state. And lamenting is to mourn the life of a loved one,
And
rather than the death.
and empath is what May has.
Bigger insights of the story, the death and how other characters deal with it. The Boatwright sisters were very good at not dwelling on the death of their sisters. They would give themselves time to mourn, time to have a funeral for them and remember the good things about them, and then they would move on. But Lily, she tended to dwell a lot on the death of her mother because she didn't get that closure, that funeral, to just drop it and let it go. And she was in denial of how her mother had died and thought her father was lying to her about her death.
Okay, I did, my big insight was family in the story. In this book, family is really strongly represented. Lily's mom dies when she's at a young age, and her father kind of abuses her as a young girl, and she never is really connected with him. But then she escapes with Rosalind, and she moves to Tiburon, and that basically becomes her whole family. August, June, May, and Zach all become her big family.
So what's your insight about family there?
And just like she never gave up on it, or she never had one, but she found a new way of getting one.
I don't know how to do this. Did you do this one?
No. Oh. Yeah. Alright. Alright, sorry. Alright, so my insight was like Lily's ability to coexist with I don't know how to say this, African Americans in the story, despite what other people thought of them. Like, there's a lot of racism in the story, and I guess Lily she didn't really care about what color people were, and she just associated with who she wanted, and I guess I could kind of apply to today.
At the beginning, she still kind of thought she was above them, but it wasn't as bad as a lot of people. But at the end, she kind of realized we're all the same.
Kind of like what I talked about last week, how the bees are us, like, on the inside we're all the same, like, who cares about our color? Yeah. My bigger insight was the Boatwright sisters' Black Mary. The bigger insight I chose in the book was the Boatwright sisters' Black Mary statue. When Lily was in search for her mother, she carried around a picture of the Black Mary with Tiburon, South Carolina on the back. When Lily is staying with the Boatwright sisters, she comes to find out that the Black Mary and the sisters teach Lily and Rosalind all about the Black Mary and what she means to the sisters. The Black Mary to Lily is the key to her mother's past. And in order to find out more about her mother's past, she must accept the Black Mary in her heart to find the courage to tell August why she is in Tiburon and why she just came to find these people.
So what actually is the Black Mary? Can you
Black
clarify
Mary-
that?
The Black Mary is a statue. So basically, the Black Mary to the Boatwright sisters is Jesus. There's a huge story about how they came in contact with the Black Mary and like, kind of like how she came to be. Like, didn't they find her washed up on shore
Yes,
with chains on her, and then they carried her to the
house.
and
Is she Jesus or is she a symbol
she's a
The
symbol.
Symbol.
She's a symbol
for Christ or for...
Mary. She's in for Mary,
for Mary.
the mother. Like, she's like a black version of Mary, Jesus' mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jalen, do you have a question?
So, okay, so is she like color-wise that version?
Color-wise, black.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why this slide is blank.
Just skip it.
Wait,
All
hold
did
on. We haven't heard
Call. I think this one's
insight
good.
from Call.
No, I forgot to write one.
So tell us about one.
Do these.
Do the bees.
Yeah.
What
It's-
did
it's
they
a
mean
symbol.
to you?
Well, the bees were a symbol of how pretty much everybody's the same. They all do the same thing every day, all just nothing really different about them. They're just, people are all the same, and we should all kind of just act like we're all the same, and we shouldn't have a big problem with each other,
Okay.
like we kind of do.
In what way are people all the same? Can you
I mean, we're
clarify
all
that?
humans, we're all the same type of organism. I mean, not really different besides how we really think and just look, I guess.
So how's that seen in the book? Can you give an example?
Well, racism, people thinking they're better than other people just because of their skin color. You know, like the racists that don't like blacks and some of the blacks that don't like whites.
Okay, do you have an example of a racist character in the text?
Rousing
What's
the
his
Let him
No,
do it.
What's his name?
No, it's that,
Let him do it.
is
Okay.
that officer?
Yeah.
Yeah, the police officer that was beating the, who was it again? Yeah, Rosalind.
Okay, but they don't know about that. So you've got to
In the
give some more
story,
information.
Rosalind, she dumped her snuff bucket onto this white man's shoe, and he got really mad about this, and she was sent to jail for this crime. In jail, the police officer basically let the guy who got snuff dumped on him. He basically let the guy and a few of his pals beat up Rosalind, and that's a show of racism in the book.
Okay, so do you have somebody the opposite of that as well?
Lily, just being white and living with all the, you know, with other people that are of different color.
Yeah, Maddie?
You know, her not really caring.
It's a snuff bucket.
When
that's
you
It's like
chew.
Chew bucket.
Oh.
So like when you
What'd you spit in?
Yeah, Emily?
Did she purposely dump it on?
So,
Yes.
so the reason why she dumped it because so this is during the Civil Rights Act, and this was when President Johnson signed the bill to saying that all black people can go and vote. So her and Lily were walking in town to go get her name registered to vote, and then these people were just sitting there drinking coffee, and then they're like, well, what are you doing here? Are you gonna go sign your name up? And she's just like,
Yeah.
dumped it on him.
And she showed him, she dumped the snuff bucket and she wrote her name in the spit that was on the ground.
Nice.
Yes.
And then,
Oh,
what?
Who? Rosalind?
It never says. She's old.
I'd
She's
say-
probably 30s or
Yeah, I'd say
40s.
30s. Is there anybody else? I think. Oh, we still have one more slide.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Oh, for critical response, it was really kind of hard to find something for the book. Yeah, I even like put book in there. Most of the reviews I found were for the movie, but this one response is pretty much the only one I found for the book, and it's a very positive response, obviously, so you can read. Otherwise, there was one really negative
Hold
review.
on. Do
for
you
the
agree
movie.
with this one?
Yeah, I agree with it. I think it's a really good book. It's written pretty well. I don't know. I'm not a big
Why?
reader.
We need some specifics. Because you could be talking about any book right now.
I don't really know.
What makes it a good book? What makes
Easy
it
to
well?
understand. It's I don't really know farther than that. I'm not a big reader. I don't know what makes a really good book. I just really like this one. It was
Okay, so tell us why you liked it.
I don't know. It was a good story, I guess.
Okay, so what made it a good story? Do you see how you're talking in generalities and you've given us nothing specific about this book and that it's a good story? Well, what makes it a good story? What makes it something you enjoyed?
I don't know.
Can
My brain's blanking out right now. No idea.
I really thought this book was, I personally think this book was really good. When you're reading it, you really have like this picture in your mind. Like you can see the scene where it sets place, and it's just so easy to follow along, and you can really relate to some of these characters. Like there's so much love and compassion, even though this is going in during a time where there's so much racism and so much hate towards all these people. You can really like see past all this and really talk about how like we are all just one person. Like underneath all of this, we are all one person. And Lily has grown up into a family where you're supposed to be racist. You're not supposed to like black people. Black people are underneath you. This is you, this is black people. And when Lily runs away with her caregiver and she meets these Boatwright sisters, she realizes that you don't have to be blood and you don't have to be this certain color to be family. as long as you're there for someone and you really truly love them and can relate with someone and really just have that person to kind of lean on your shoulder when you're sad, that's what a family is. And that's what I really loved about this book. And even the suicide part with May, they handled it in such a positive way. Like the Boatwright sisters, when Emily talks about how they don't dwell on it, they had a funeral for May for 2 days. 2 days straight. They put the body out in the living room and they opened the casket, and people were like, the sisters were coming by and they were giving their respects, and then they made food that May would have loved, and they sat and laughed at the table and just really thought that she was there next to him, which I thought was amazing. So 10 out of 10.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Emily.
The sisters, are they blood related?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so like, why are they living together? Like, where are their parents?
Okay, so their parents died. Did they talk about how they died? I don't
No.
remember. They probably just died of old age. And, I mean,
They all kind of live together because they like that sense of we're in charge. We get to have our own land. We get to own our own land. We get to do what we want here, not be married to someone and they own you and you have to be in the kitchen. They
Yeah.
Well, one main reason was because they had to take care of May too.
yeah.
They had
Yeah.
to help take care of her.
Was there any negative feelings toward the book?
No.
It was a little dull at times, but past it moved pretty quickly.
The first chapter's kind of,
Yeah,
Boring.
it kind of sat along, but it moved quickly after that.
Because the end wasn't really what we were all kind of
Yeah.
wanting
Yeah.
either.
One
the ending was
thing,
kind of off.
we were all kind of on our seats the whole book because Miss Lampert decided to point out the story of how Lily shot her mother. So we're like, oh, this can't be the right way. This can't be what actually happened. So we were hoping at the end of the story there would be something else, but they didn't really go into that at the end. They just kind of reconnected Lily and
Like,
her
oh,
father's
that happened.
relationship. It happened.
yeah.
That was one
Sorry,
thing that
spoiler,
really bothered
last 3
me.
pages. Did you find any other reviews? You said you had another
You
one?
get a negative one about the movie?
It was about the movie, so I didn't know to add it or not because it was for the movie. But
What
it
was
was
you
most.
know what it said?
It's a lot of it's. The person didn't sound like they really watched the movie. It sounded more of they just were against this type of movie, you know, like a party movie, like very sappy kind of, you know.
Like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, kind of. And they didn't really sound like they watched it. They sound like they just saw it for what like the general like how it was put out there sort of thing was, and they went off of that.
And you guys haven't seen the movie yet.
No.
Yeah, I have it, but a friend of mine borrowed it and hasn't returned it yet. So they're waiting for me to get this DVD back so they can go watch
seen
it.
the cover of the movie and I was like, you know what, I think I saw this a long time ago, but I don't remember any of it.
And Miss Lambert talks about how, like, people sometimes make this book out to be a girly book, and how it's just based for girls, which it's really
At
not.
moments it is
You
because
can
it's a
see.
14-year-old girl narrating it, so that's gonna be kind of on the girlier side, but.
Well, once we hit this age range, it really doesn't seem to matter at all either. So
Yeah,
I
man.
know last week that when the professor was here and you said like you can put yourself into the story. How do you feel that you can put yourself into the story?
Well, so we talk about how Lily's abused, and she gets yelled at, like, constantly, like, by T-Ray because he's a drunk, and he blames everything that he does on Lily. And so it's kind of personal, like, if you have that kind of background, or if you have something like that where you feel like you're in a situation where you don't really feel like these people are your true family, you can really put yourself into this, like, into Lily's character, because when she meets the Calendar sisters, she really feels like August is her mom and can talk to her about anything, and all the other sisters are her family. Like, I really put myself into that, and it just made it 10 times better because I loved reading this book. I never wanted to put it down.
Any other final questions for this group?
Jalen.
What surprised you most about this story?
The
I
ending?
think Lily's ability to completely drop her social ranking that she grew up in and was able to make that family connection with people she wasn't supposed to. That was pretty cool.
And there's a part in the book when right after May dies, a policeman is at the house and he sees Lily and he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, you need to not stoop yourself so low to this, like you need to leave, like this isn't where you belong. And she's just like, I'm so confused, like why are you saying this to me? Like this is my family. Yeah.
Are they like when she leaves? Where does she run away to? Like,
She-
is it separate towns or like?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
separate
far away?
towns.
Yeah.
So she's so like
She
this
ends up
is
hitchhiking.
yeah, she ends up
for
hitchhiking on
long
a
time.
is it a muskmelon?
Yeah.
A muskmelon.
Yeah,
A
muskmelon.
muskmelon truck.
Yep.
And then they get dropped off somewhere, and then her and Rosalind are like in this river, and then they're like, yeah, this is gonna be great. And then they're looking up at the moon, and then they're like, yeah, this is gonna be great. And then they meet and they go to Tiburon, and then they're like, hey, do you know where this is? And she shows her the picture of the Black Madonna, and he's like, oh yeah, it's up the road. Yeah, we go there. Yeah, and then that's how they meet.
Okay, we're gonna cut you off there so we can get another group in.
Sounds good.